Greetings, travelers of Middle-earth. Today, we embark on a journey to one of the most pivotal moments in Tolkien's legendarium, the last alliance of elves and men. This monumental event, set in the waning years of the Second Age, represents the zenith of unity among the free peoples of Middle-earth and the enduring struggle against the shadow of Sauron. Through valor, sacrifice, and tragedy, it laid the foundation for the great tales of the Third Age. The last alliance was forged in a time of despair, as Sauron, the Dark Lord of Mordor, sought to dominate all of Middle-earth through the power of the One Ring. By this point in history, Sauron had already claimed vast territories, spreading terror and destruction. The Númenóreans, who survived the downfall of their island kingdom, had established the realms of Arnor and Gondor, but they were still vulnerable. The Elves, though mighty, had dwindled in numbers and power since the glory days of the First Age. Realizing that no single force could withstand Sauron, High King Gil-galad of the Elves and Elendil of the Númenórean faithful formed an unprecedented alliance. This coalition was not born of hope or friendship alone, but of necessity. As Tolkien described in the Silmarillion, they took counsel together, for they perceived that the power of the One Ring could not be overcome save by united strength. The March of the Last Alliance was one of the most awe-inspiring sights in the history of Middle-earth. From the forests of Lindon, where the Elves gathered, to the strongholds of men in Arnor and Gondor, banners of gold and silver were raised. The combined host included not only elves and men, but also dwarves who, though not as numerous, brought their indomitable strength and skill in warfare. Their journey took them across vast and treacherous lands. As they passed through Aran, a land once devastated by Sauron, the soldiers saw firsthand the devastation wrought by the Dark Lord. The ruins served as a grim reminder of what was at stake. The sight strengthened their resolve, but it also filled their hearts with foreboding. When the Alliance reached the borders of Mordor, they were met by an army unlike any the world had ever seen. Orcs swarmed in countless numbers, accompanied by trolls and other monstrous creatures loyal to Sauron. The air was thick with the stench of death, and the skies were darkened by the fumes of Mount Doom, where the One Ring had been forged. The stage was set for a battle of unimaginable scale. The battle that ensued, known as the Battle of Dagorlad, was a spectacle of both horror and heroism. As the forces of the Last Alliance surged onto the battlefield, the ground beneath them trembled with the weight of tens of thousands of warriors. The Elves, led by Gil-galad, fought with unmatched precision, their arrows cutting through the ranks of Sauron's orcs with deadly efficiency. The men of Númenórean descent, hardened by years of strife, charged with shields raised and swords gleaming, their courage unshaken even in the face of overwhelming odds. But the forces of Mordor were relentless. The orcs, though crude and chaotic, fought with savage brutality. Trolls wielded massive clubs, smashing through lines of elves and men, while great siege engines hurled boulders and fire into the ranks of the Alliance. The air was filled with the clash of steel, the cries of the wounded, and the unceasing roar of Mount Doom in the distance. For days the battle raged on. Neither side could claim victory, as each gained ground only to lose it again. The plain of Gorlad became a charnel house, the bodies of the fallen piling high, staining the earth with blood. Amid the chaos, Gil-galad and Elendil stood as beacons of hope for their people, Their presence inspired their warriors to fight on, even as fatigue and despair began to take their toll. Finally, after immense sacrifice, the forces of the last alliance broke through the lines of Sauron's army and laid siege to Barad-dûr, the Dark Tower. This siege would last for 7 long years. During this time, the alliance faced not only the might of Sauron's forces, but also the harsh environment of Mordor. Supplies grew scarce, and the morale of the troops was tested as the war dragged on. It was during these years that the bonds between elves and men were both strengthened and tested. Despite their differences, they fought side by side, united by their shared purpose. Yet tensions occasionally flared as the pressures of the siege revealed the cracks in their alliance. The dwarves, though few in number, proved invaluable in crafting weapons and fortifications, earning the respect of their allies. Inside Barad-dûr, Sauron watched and waited. Though his forces had suffered great losses, he remained confident in the power of the One Ring. He knew that as long as the ring endured, his spirit could not be destroyed. It was this knowledge that emboldened him to leave his fortress and confront the leaders of the Alliance directly. The climactic moment of the war came when Sauron himself entered the battlefield. Towering above his enemies, clad in blackened armor and wielding a mace that shattered all in its path. He was a force of nature. The sight of the Dark Lord struck fear into the hearts of even the bravest warriors. Many faltered, and the lines of the Alliance began to waver under his onslaught. In the midst of this chaos, Gil-galad and Elendil confronted Sauron together. Their duel was one of legend, a clash of light and shadow that would be remembered for ages to come. Gil-galad, wielding his spear Aeglos, fought with the precision and grace of the Eldar, while Elendil, armed with the great sword Narsil, struck with the strength and resolve of Númenor's mightiest king. Despite their combined might, they could not overcome Sauron. Gil-galad fell, consumed by the heat of the Dark Lord's malice. His body burned beyond recognition. Elendil, though mortally wounded, delivered a final blow that shattered Narsil, the shards of the sword cutting into Sauron's flesh. It was this moment that allowed Isildur, Elendil's son, to step forward and change the course of history. Grasping the hilt of the broken Narsil, Isildur struck with all his strength, severing the One Ring from Sauron's hand. The Dark Lord's physical form was destroyed, and his armies scattered in disarray. Yet the victory was far from complete. The ring, a fragment of Sauron's very essence, had not been destroyed. Its influence began to work on Isildur almost immediately. As Elrond and Círdan urged him to cast the ring into the fires of Mount Doom, Isildur refused. "This I will have as were-gild for my father and my brother," he declared, claiming the ring as his own. Though the battle was won, this fateful decision would haunt Middle-earth for centuries to come, as the shadow of Sauron endured. The aftermath of the last alliance was bittersweet. The armies of elves and men, once so grand, were now a fraction of their former strength. The plains of Dagorlad, littered with the bodies of the fallen, became a grim monument to their sacrifice. The elves retreated to their realms, weary and diminished, while the men of Gondor and Arnor began the long process of rebuilding their kingdoms. For Elrond, who had fought alongside Gil-galad and witnessed Isildur's choice, The memory of the last alliance was a painful reminder of both the cost of victory and the fragility of hope. He carried the shards of Narsil back to Rivendell, where they would be kept as a symbol of the strength and unity that once was, and the hope that it might one day be reforged. The years that followed the last alliance were marked by a fragile peace. Though Sauron's physical form had been destroyed, the Elves and the Dunedain knew that his spirit endured, bound to the One Ring. The Elves, led by Elrond and Galadriel, began to retreat further into their sanctuaries, such as Rivendell and Lothlorien, where they could preserve what beauty and wisdom remained of their dwindling kind. For them, the last alliance was a bitter reminder of their fading influence in Middle-earth. In Gondor, the stewards and kings alike labored to maintain the legacy of Elendil and Isildur. The great white city of Minas Tirith became a symbol of resilience, its towers and walls a bulwark against the lingering threats from Mordor. Yet even Gondor could not escape the shadow of the ring. Isildur's decision to keep it haunted his lineage, a stain on an otherwise noble house. When Isildur himself was ambushed and slain in the Gladden Fields, the ring was lost to history, sinking into the Anduin's depths. This loss, however, brought no relief. Though the ring lay hidden, its malevolence subtly influenced the world. The free peoples became complacent, their vigilance faltering as the centuries passed. Arnor, the northern kingdom of the Dunedain, fragmented into smaller realms and eventually fell. Gondor, though stronger, also began to weaken, its line of kings failing as the stewards took their place. The unity that had defined the last alliance became a distant memory. Among the Dunedain of the north, the memory of the last alliance remained sacred. The Rangers, descendants of Isildur, carried the burden of their ancestors' failure. They lived in secrecy, protecting the lands of Eriador from the remnants of Sauron's servants. Aragorn, the greatest of their kind, grew up with the knowledge of his heritage and the shards of Narsil, a constant reminder of the responsibility that lay upon him to unite the free peoples once more. For the Elves, the memory of the last alliance was preserved in song and lore. The Lament for Gil-galad, sung by Samwise Gamgee and the Fellowship of the Ring, was one such example. Gil-galad was an elven king, of him the harpers sadly sing. These songs were not merely tributes, but lessons, reminders that vigilance and unity were the only weapons against the darkness that always sought to return. When the One Ring was rediscovered in the Third Age, the legacy of the last alliance came full circle. Elrond, who had stood on the slopes of Mount Doom and witnessed Isildur's refusal to destroy the ring, saw history repeating itself. The Council of Elrond was convened to decide the fate of the ring, and it was there that the Fellowship of the Ring was formed, a new alliance of men, elves, dwarves, and hobbits, echoing the unity of the last alliance. Aragorn, now wielding the reforged blade Anduril, stepped into his role as the heir of Isildur. His leadership during the War of the Ring was a direct continuation of the struggle begun by his ancestors. The bonds formed between him, Legolas, Gimli, and Frodo reflected the cooperation that had once defined the last alliance, proving that even the smallest of allies could have a profound impact on the fate of Middle-earth. The final confrontation at the Black Gate, where Aragorn and the armies of the West drew Sauron's eye to give Frodo a chance to destroy the ring, was in many ways a reflection of Dagorlad. Though the army of men were fewer, their resolve was just as strong. The lessons of the last alliance: unity, sacrifice, and unwavering courage were present in every step of that desperate march. When the ring was finally destroyed in the fires of Mount Doom, the work of the last alliance was completed. The victory belonged not just to Frodo and the Fellowship, but to all those who had fought and fallen in ages past. Gil-galad, Elendil, and the countless unnamed warriors of the last alliance had laid the foundation for this moment, proving that even in failure, their sacrifices were not in vain. As the Fourth Age began, the legacy of the last alliance remained a beacon of inspiration. The Age of Men rose from the ashes of the War of the Ring, and Aragorn, now King Elisar, ruled with the wisdom and humility born from the struggles of his ancestors. The Elves, though departing for the Undying Lands, left behind their songs and stories, ensuring that the memory of their alliance with men would endure. In the end, the last alliance of elves and men was more than just a battle. It was a turning point in the history of Middle-earth. It taught the free peoples that unity could overcome even the greatest of evils, and that the actions of the past always ripple into the future. Its legacy endured not just in the monuments and songs, but in the hearts of those who carried its lessons forward. Thank you for joining me on this journey through one of Tolkien's most profound tales. If this story inspired you, share your thoughts in the comments and let me know which part resonated most with you. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more tales from the world of Middle-earth. Until we meet again, may the stars of Elbereth guide your path. Farewell.